Okay, hello and welcome everybody. Welcome to this 37th Platform Academy session. Today I'm being joined by my wonderful colleague Eliza from the US, originally from New Zealand, I think. We'll do introductions in just a second. Today we will be talking about some service portal foundations, which is an exciting but also a little anxious topic for everyone. I hope we can answer most of your questions today. So first, introductions. My name is Lisa Hohenstein. I'm an outbound product manager for the Now platform. I've been with ServiceNow for about 4.5 years. I joined early in 2019 as a solution consultant and worked for a customer before I was the admin, developer, service owner, pretty much everything for the platform. And I also got the chance to work with our service portal back then, be part of the implementation project. So I remember some of these things, even if I don't work with it daily anymore. My main products are the workflow automation products. So you may have seen my content on the community in the Workflow Automation Center of Excellence. But today, we will be talking with Eliza. So Eliza, please give a quick introduction to yourself.
So I'm Eliza. I am based in the US, actually in Alabama right now. But yeah, originally from New Zealand, so the accent's kind of muddled. But anyway, yeah, so I've been with ServiceNow for just over 2 years now, bounced around a lot of products, but I am now settled in my new home on Service Portal. So really excited to get into it. And yeah, looking forward to hearing from you guys as well.
The next one is the safe harbor slide. So in the case that we might be talking to any forward-looking statements, please don't make any purchasing decisions based on what we say today. This is part of a longer series of academies. We have different academies on different topics. There's another slide later in this deck to give you all the links. You can also get to the overview from this QR code. We have academies about virtual agent, next experience. We have AI and some of the other academy runners also in our audience, which is so awesome that you come and join us today. We have an academy on platform analytics and more mobile, I think. So be sure to check out the other ones as well. Very interesting content. So I think with that, I can hand it over to Eliza.
So the first question I really want to cover is, what is Service Portal? So Service Portal really is a front-end interface for your employees. And when I say employees, these are those employees that, won't actually be within ServiceNow proper, interacting with those lists and forms and modules that you have all set up. So they aren't ServiceNow admins. These are the people actually coming in, wanting to self-service their requests or by finding knowledge articles, exploring the service catalog, or even just going in and looking at their current tasks, like approvals, submitted tickets, anything like that. That is the primary use case for Service Portal. And what it is, we like to call it the front-end interface because it really is. It uses front-end technology stack to surface all these. And the great thing about it is that it's flexible. I say it, we primarily designed to be a self-service experience, but it is super flexible. So if you have a custom application, you can build in an entirely custom front-end service portal for your employees to go ahead and access that. So it doesn't have to be what you see on the screen there. And just if you want to know what the GIF is showing is actually the Employee Center, which is our kind of most modern version of the Service Portal. Now, most commonly, if you've used Service Portal before in any capacity, you'll probably have looked at introducing them the service catalog, knowledge base, incidents, cases, folding all those up into one easily digestible self-service experience within the Service Portal. So these are the key components that generally make up a service portal, be it using one of our other service portals or the Employee Center one itself. These are generally the three kind of primary data sources for you. But as I said before, it's super flexible. You can even bring in stuff from different APIs and surface that information within the portal as well. We do have a number of stock portals available just to jumpstart your implementation, or even for you to use out of the box if you don't have strict branding requirements or don't require that many changes. So going left to right, we've got Employee Center, which you saw before on the GIF. This is our kind of primary service portal that we recommend for you to use if you're looking to go down that route. What it is so Employee Center is a single unified hub for all your departments to have that front end available. So you can fold in HR, IT, even like risk management. They can all be brought in to the single user interface and have their requests, catalog items, cases, knowledge bases. They can all be folded up into the single taxonomy that is then presented within Employee Center. In the middle, we have the CSM service portal. So this is if you have people accessing your service portal who don't have accounts within ServiceNow. So this might be customers coming in, vendors, anything like that. For those use cases, you'll have to use CSM or CSP service portal, which is in the middle there. And just as an example, on the right, we do still have some, I don't want to call them legacy because they're not, deprecated or anything. You can still use them, but they're just a little bit less modern with the HR service portal. So they still exist. You can still use them. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just not the modern experience that we are pushing with Employee Center. So if you're currently using the HR service portal or the /SP service portal, anything like that, we generally do recommend that you look towards migrating towards Employee Center. But still, nothing wrong with them, still works. And at the end of the day, that's what you want. So what is a portal made of? So the base service portal and all those portals that you saw just on the previous slide, they all made up of front-end technologies. So what this means is we use AngularJS, CSS, HTML. Any sort of front-end developer will understand how that works. And you're able to use those languages to configure how the look and feel and user experience of your service portals. We do use Bootstrap as well, which is what you see in the middle there, how it's out of the box. It's kind of grid-based, so you can think of it similar to a table. We've got rows and columns that you kind of fit your little components into. And then out of the box, it is responsive. That's one of the best things about Bootstrap and why we went that way is if you change the size of the window, it will also change the size of the components within that. So then, any sort of screen size experience, people will still be able to use it. Within the service portal, we use widgets to contain various pieces of functionality. So if we go ahead to this page here, you can see this is a service portal page. Again, it's Employee Center, which is what we recommend. But I really want you to look at what's in the bright green boxes because they are all individual widgets. And a widget normally just contains a specific set of functionality. And here we've got, down the bottom, we've got the how can we help in search bar. So that's contained within one widget. And the nice thing about widgets is you can create as many instances of them as you want. So you can actually reuse them across multiple pages, even multiple portals. And you basically just drag and drop them onto the page within the Service Portal Editor. So it's pretty neat. At this point, you might be asking, what can we do to make the portal ours? There's a few main things that you can do. The first one is brand the portal. So this is where you're actually looking to bring in your company's specific styles into the service portal. What you see there on the left is just a screenshot showing the theme editor, which we have available for Service Portal, where you can change which colors exist for like the buttons and particular items. But if you need something a bit more in detail than that, then you need to go in and actually edit the CSS of the theme or the particular widget that you're wanting to change the look of. It's all pretty flexible, as I said, because it is based upon front-end development language, front-end technologies. You can pretty much do anything you want with it as long as you have that foundational knowledge of CSS and HTML and how to edit and display that. Next up, so configuring the content in the middle there. So what this means is using things such as user criteria to determine what users see within each page and making sure that someone who only operates within the IT space doesn't see anything specifically relating to HR, or if someone's working within New Zealand, they don't want to hear about the 4th of July holiday. They don't get the day off. So making sure that the content is really tailored to each individual user or user group. And lastly, create new elements. So on the screen there on the right, what you're seeing is a widget editor. And this is where you can go in and change the workflow, change how it looks, change what the experience is. When you type in to the search bar, do you want to type ahead in there so that you can basically have people's search text auto completed? You can pretty much do anything. And if you have specific functionality you need, go ahead and make it. Yeah. I do want to show off the potential of Service Portal. So these are just some examples of service portals that one of our developers has actually gone and created, just so you can see, what is possible with the portal. So this is for an imaginary telco company, and it's just very, very customized. So you can see that this looks probably nothing like any of the portals you've seen, just kind of out of the box from us. And that includes Employee Center or /SP, the traditional one. But this is all, if you can zoom in your screen enough, you can see in the URL, this is a ServiceNow. This is within a ServiceNow instance, and it is a service portal page. So you have options, and don't be afraid to spend the time changing it up, making it consistent, because that is one thing that we do recommend, is really making sure that the look and feel across all your different various intranets have consistent branding, have consistent look and feel. It would just make the user experience so much better. Now, I do have a question for everyone, and that is, what use cases have you seen a service portal used for in the past? I'll give it a minute here for people to populate in the comments what use cases you've seen. So one example of a use case that doesn't fit the traditional service portal mold was actually my first ever ServiceNow project, where I was working with a law enforcement agency to build out the front end for members of the public to come in and submit incident reports. So this would be if they saw someone walking around, like breaking into car windows, they'll be able to go onto their service portal and submit a ticket to say, hey, there's been someone suspicious around this neighborhood. So that's been one option. There's also some use cases that I've seen where they actually open up to vendors to populate an embedded Excel sheet. So yeah, there's pretty much, I just really want to use this time to reiterate that service portal is flexible. If you've got a use case, you've got a custom application, you can build out a service portal and have that front end be available to you and your users. I also just documented out some additional use cases in which you can use a service portal for. So as mentioned, we've got the searching within the knowledge base, helping to users self-service their requests, contacting a live agent, or using virtual agent to resolve their queries themselves. It's also a good interface to drive action through asking people for approvals, asking for them to trigger the next step in the workflow. You also have the option for creating that front end for custom applications. So if any of you work with the CCPA or GDPR regulations, having a service portal front end for those people coming in to request their privacy statements, you need that front end. So you can have them submit their request via that service portal, and then have that request go ahead and trigger a workflow within ServiceNow. So lots of options here, just some food for thought if you are looking to actually work on a service portal. There's a lot of different use cases that you can have applied there. So with trends in service delivery, this is really, we basically just sat down and really looked to see, what are people using service portals for? What do they expect when they come to an intranet, a website that you guys provide? So 3 main points. First up, anywhere, anytime access is super, super key, because you have field service agents working out, in the middle of nowhere. They just have their mobile devices with them or their iPads. You need to make sure that they are able to access what they need within different formats, and also make sure that the workflows actually work well with those different types of devices and when you're not just at the computer. In the middle, we talk about consumer experiences. So what this really means is people today are used to things such as Apple products or Instagram, these consumer grade products that deliver really amazing user experiences. Because, if a consumer downloads an app, it doesn't look good, the functionality doesn't feel intuitive, they're going to drop it. So they're used to that level of, experience. So you really want to try and mimic that within your service portal, just so that they want to come back. You want to make it easy for them. And lastly, self-service is really key. And that's a lot of the reason why people go towards using service portal, because it really is a great user interface to surface those self-service items, such as using virtual agent, having a search bar that covers your knowledge base, your service catalog. It's just another method for you to surface that material, so they don't have to call up your help desk every time. They can resolve their requests themselves. So some impediments to great experiences. So if you've implemented service portal, you've probably run into these lessons already. But these are the typical pain points that we see when looking at service portals. So the first one, hard to find content. Search isn't indexed correctly, or it uses terminology that employees just don't understand. Or the user experience, they click on one item, they expect A, but instead they're receiving B. So making sure that your content is serviceable is huge. Lack of search relevancy. So if you have the search bars in there, which you probably should in the service portal generally, depends on the use case as always, but making sure that people are actually able to retrieve useful search results. So we have a product called AI Search, which is really, really incredible for servicing up the most relevant information to the user based upon using artificial intelligence. So if you're not using that already, AI Search, it's great. We'll have some neat enhancements for that in the future, so keep your eyes peeled. Third in that line is content isn't tailored to me. So I've already kind of mentioned this earlier, but just making sure that the content is relevant to the user. You have all the information on the user profile, so why not use it? You know what department they're in, you know which geography they're in, what language they operate in. So use that information to your advantage and show them the things that that actually matter to them. At the bottom left, inconsistent experiences. So this, just making sure that things such as branding and colors, or the way that a form flows, should be consistent across all your intranets, all your various tools that you might use within your organization, trying to mimic those experiences, just so that if one person has been using a particular tool for 5 years now, they don't have to relearn an entirely new platform or new tool when you give them your service portal to look at. It should be intuitive. And just making sure that it's consistent across those experiences really helps with that. And then lastly, just low confidence in tickets. So this is one thing that we found where people just won't bother to submit a ticket, or if they do, they don't expect resolution because they don't have feedback coming back to them saying, hey, your ticket is in this state. And so like many employees just kind of see tickets as not really the way to go. So really populating self-service is a really great way to avoid that. So then they can resolve the incidents themselves rather than relying on the ticketing channel for 100% of issues. And these are just some user needs that kind of correlate to those pain points.
The part about the content that you mentioned earlier, people who joined us 2 weeks ago when Ashley was talking about knowledge management, we shortly hit on the content parts in Employee Center. So being able to use user criteria, roles, or groups to surface the right content to the right people. This is similar to how content blocks work in knowledge as well. So if you combine the two and make sure that the KBs that are being surfaced through the portal only contain the content that is relevant to the audience that is looking at it.
So related to those pain points, we have some leading practices. So each kind of slide will cover a different user need, and then the leading practices that kind of are the outcomes of that and how to essentially resolve those pain points. So the first one is you really need to understand the current state. Before going and doing anything, take a look around you. Look to see, if you've already deployed Service Portal, look into use the user experience analytics dashboard to find out how your users are using your Service Portal today. Now, I just bring up a screenshot of that user experience analytics dashboard here, and you can see it provides so much information. You really get an understanding of, first of all, how many people are using your portal, how many sessions, so how many times they're actually coming back to that Service Portal. And the thing that I always like to point out is in the bottom middle there's something called funnels. So this is really, really important. It's a really powerful feature because what a funnel measures is how many people went on the particular journey. The use case on this particular dashboard was they were looking to measure how many people created a case, how many people ended up viewing a knowledge base article, or how many just simply visited the homepage and then quit out. You can create your own custom funnels to measure what are your users doing within the Service Portal. You can see how many people navigate to search and then go to a particular request item from that search. So you can get some really, really interesting details and just learn, how are people using your portal today? And then that can really help narrow down what you should focus on within future builds of your Service Portal. So going back to this previous slide, so using that analytics dashboard I just showed to get an overview of how people are using your portal today, using the surveys and assessments tool just to get that customer feedback, understand, people who just interact with your portal, what are they thinking? But with the caveat that people are generally more likely to give feedback if they're upset or if they're frustrated by something. So don't be surprised if you see a lot of bad ratings. I promise you it's probably not that bad. And then also make sure that you've done usability studies, and if you haven't deployed Service Portal yet, understand how they're using tools today that provide the same functionality. Ask them, what do you enjoy about this experience? What is frustrating? And work to make sure that your Service Portal avoids those pitfalls. One thing that's really interesting is on my first ever project, I work with a lot of developers, and we built out this amazing Service Portal. We were super happy with it. And then we went to do a usability study with someone from the accounting team, completely different department, completely different backgrounds. And we were so confident going into it that we laid out a set of challenges asking them to go, okay, we want you to find out how to reset your router or how to submit a particular case. We gave them, a list of journeys that we wanted them to go on. And let me tell you, they struggled. There were so many little pitfalls along the way that we just didn't see. We were blind because we were the ones looking at it day in and day out. And, here's this user who doesn't have that knowledge of the standards that we use. And so they struggled. So really making sure that you use those use the people around you, use other employees to actually give you service support or go before you start building it out or before you release it to a wider group is really important. So all in all, make sure that you understand what the problem is, or what the current pain points are, what's frustrating your users, so then you can actually go ahead and alleviate those concerns.
That sounds like a very good recommendation for testing anyways. Have other eyes on the code and on the products that you build, because you will always see the happy path and what you were building for, but users will find all of the nooks and crannies that you overlooked.
Next up is focusing on service delivery. So users really, at the end of the day, they just want to be confident that you'll actually go ahead and address their issue in a timely manner. And the best way of doing that is, well, first of all, resolving it fast, having SLAs in there, but then also giving them visibility into their progress. If it's going to take a week, let them know what to expect. So best practices to really present this is making sure that your workflows are reviewed. You want to make sure that they're streamlined, efficient. Can you automate particular things? Can you leverage Flow Design or Integration Hub just to make things a little bit more efficient in your processes? And then also making sure that there's no single point of failure. So this is something that catches some people up, where you've got an approval sent out for something, that person's away for 2 weeks. So really try to use assignment groups, use SLAs that notify a manager if they're about to be breached, because you don't want tickets sitting there for 2 to 3 weeks waiting for someone to come back for vacation. But yeah, just making sure that the service that your service portal provides and promises is actually met really resolves a lot of issues.
Yeah, I think there are several ways to ensure these things don't happen. SLAs is definitely a good way to be sure these things don't land into the nirvana. When it comes to integrations, it's always a good idea to make use of error handling or retry options. And then if things run into errors, notify the right people to change the setup or maybe use new versions of an API. There are a lot of recommendations that we have. And if you are looking at your processes and there aren't necessarily errors, but you don't quite know why certain things take longer than you expect, we do have a product. I think it used to be called process optimization. I think it's getting renamed to process mining. And that one will help you identify those time sinks in your processes. So that will analyze your data, see what are long-running processes, long-running steps in your processes, and help you optimize them. And then a third one, when we're talking about self-service, I think there are options to get suggestions for what can be automated and what are common search topics that you might want to create virtual agent topics for the self-service part as well.
Next up, so information finds the user. I feel like I've hopped on about this a little bit in this academy, but really just making sure that the content that you show is personalized to the particular person's role, location, department, job type. And to do this, what you need to do really is just making sure that your items are consolidated. Your average employee, they don't care if they submitted an HR case and an incident, and technically they belong to different departments. They just know that they submitted 2 tickets and they want to see them all in one place. So consolidating where you can, that really helps with consistency as well, which is we already kind of talked about a little bit. It's super important. And also using the information that you have on them to drive what that user sees. So using user criteria to tailor what is presented in a news banner or what announcements they get, just to make sure that anytime you actually surface something to a user, it's actually relevant to them and they don't get kind of information overload or information fatigue where they stop actually looking. And the one time it's actually relevant and important, they're going to miss it because they're so tired of just looking at it. And lastly, making sure that the metadata, the tags, the keywords that you have for your knowledge base, your service catalog, it matches what the user will actually say. So if someone types in a request such as, I need to reset my RSA token, that information actually gets presented to them. So that's via search, virtual agent. If you're familiar with the virtual agent, the natural language understanding component of that, the NLU model, that's very much what we're talking about here, where it's making sure that you are able to cover each potential utterance and making sure that each way that the user can say it will actually lead to the outcome that they need. Next up, don't follow the old chart. So making sure that content is easily discoverable and organized in a way that actually makes sense to a user. So what this really means is kind of hiking back to that example before where they submitted something related to the IT department and something related to the HR department. They don't care that, they're separate parts of the organization. Just try and, keep things consistent, keep things organized in a way that, the user can just find what they need. And this might be, writing content and the user's language. And this just means avoiding acronyms or jargon that, only an IT professional will know because this is an IT request. No, it should be consistent. Tone, grammar, everything like that. Try to maintain that across each separate department's components that are presented within the service portal, just to give that consistent experience and making sure that the user knows what to expect. The third one on here that covers the logical content structure. So this is especially relevant with the employee center, where you go in and define taxonomy. What appears in that mega menu that you might have seen in the example that I gave, where it's a drop-down list of all the different categories, making sure that it makes sense to the user and that the user knows how to navigate your website and find the content they need is super, super important and can really be surfaced with those usability studies that we mentioned earlier. And lastly, so remember that consumers, not providers. One example of this that I like to give is it drives me nuts when I'm logged in to a website. I have my user profile, all my information's on there, and they ask me to populate my name on a field or populate my email. A lot of time you'll have that information, so help them out a little bit. Pre-populate what you can. Try to make sure that they're just in that your users actually just verifying data. And only providing what is actually net new. It really just makes experience so much better. So in terms of best practices in here, so, keeping it simple, use the data that you have, use integrations that you might be able to introduce and business rules just to reduce the need to ask user for information. You just want them to get in and get out as fast as they can. And, it'll make everyone that much more happier. Reducing technical jargon, so making sure that the questions that you ask on the forms, it's not confusing, or if there's a term or something that might cause confusion, have a little tooltip or something just to explain what you're actually asking for. And lastly, collecting information in the right way. So this is specifically relevant to service catalog. So using variable sets really can ensure consistency across the catalogs and make sure that the user, if they open up a catalog item from one group, and then they open the catalog item from another group, that they get the same type of experience because the questions are similar. It just really helps build out a great user experience. And it also helps your teams because they're not going to have to go back and ask the user for more information or ask them, hey, your email address and that you put on the form is different to the email address we have for you. Like, which one is it? Like, little things like that can be avoided if you just go ahead and pre-populate it.
It's one of my pet peeves when I'm a customer or I have to fill out forms. if I'm already logged in to a web shop, an online vendor or something, and then I click on the contact form and they ask me for my email address and my name, and I think, well, you already have it. I am logged in. You should know who I am and how to contact me. So that is definitely something. And similarly for info, like your manager, your cost center, the address to ship things to, these things should be in your master data, and you should have a system that determines what the master data is, where you have this information saved to. We want to know your best practices. Going beyond what we've just seen, have you developed any best practices that you want to share with us or the other attendees or people who watch the recording later? Let us know, put it in chat. Keep this up for a second, and then I think we can move on. Yeah, so I will jump to the next part. And that is one of my favorite things, is measuring success. And I think we've seen some of that before already. So let's take another peek at this.
So measuring success, we've already kind of touched upon this, but primarily look to use the feedback that you can gather and that we provide methods of you for gathering within your service portal. So that might be enabling feedback on your knowledge articles, using the user experience analytics dashboard to understand how people are using your service portal, and then also including the survey. So this might be a survey once someone has completed using virtual agent, or just even like a pop-up on the service portal homepage if they visited 3 or 4 times. These are just different ways of measuring success, and really looking, when you've got all this data, you really need to know how to break that down. So
we have another one. What types of questions should you ask while reviewing usage data? I love this one because it's not just the data. You want to know where you're going with the data, right?
Here are just some examples where it's like, okay, you can look to see what the user's searching for. Like, what's the most popular search? We generally find, if someone has a service portal for their IT department, they're looking for password resets. That's a main driver. So can you highlight that item on the main page within your virtual agent? Can you have it appear straight away within a promoted topic? Those are just some ideas. Are people actually, for the second question, is like, are they finding helpful results when using the search option? And this is where the funnels from that user experience analytics dashboard might come in. We can create a funnel to see, okay, how many people search for something, then they actually went to a catalog item, or how many just ended their journey there. And then you can understand if you need to improve your keywords, if you need to improve the indexing of your search. There are some really kind of more generic, so just looking to see what isn't popular, what catalog item gets access the most, and seeing if you can improve there. So it really helps with prioritization of enhancements. And then also just generally, what are users saying about Service Portal? Comments are always great. You always learn a lot from them, and reach out to them. The people who write out an essay saying, I just like ABC about your Service Portal, bring them in for usability study because they actually care. So actually sitting down one-on-one with them to see what they're doing within your portal and understanding, getting that feedback from them is always a really great method of understanding where to go next with your Service Portal. And now, the future of Service Portal, I think everyone's been waiting for. The question is Service Portal being deprecated? No. The short answer is no. And you might ask, so, okay, but AngularJS, that's deprecated. And the answer is, we know. However, we do maintain our own fork of AngularJS, which we actually continuously maintain. We've got a team that goes ahead and patches it, makes sure that it's up to date with the latest in security. And we plan to keep this up to date for the foreseeable future. Now, if you're wondering about the particular version that we're on, we will be staying on that particular version. We don't have any kind of plans in the foreseeable future to actually update the library to the latest library of AngularJS either. So I'd say basically like what you see is what you get for the next kind of interim, but safe harbor on that. And you might also be wondering about UI Builder. If you've played with that, it's a new interface where you can drag and drop and create new workspaces and little miniature portals you might have seen in there as well. However, even though it can be used to build portals, it lacks a lot of features that we provide within the service portal today, and it's not at parity with what we currently offer within service portal. So we really do not recommend using UI Builder for an enterprise level portal, just because there's so many gaps today in that. So a small departmental portal, perhaps. And if you're interested in learning more, if you search on ServiceNow community for UI Builder versus Service Portal, I think is the name of the article. It's written by Brad Tilton. He does a really, really amazing job of breaking down when you should use each particular type. So the UI Builder or the Angular Service Portal I've been talking about today. And now some of you might just want a newer experience. So we are investigating options about what's coming next, and we will be communicating news as it becomes available. So keep an eye on the community hub. But the thing is, whatever we release, we have a lot of customers on Service Portal. A lot of people are very dependent on the current technology stack and what they built out. So we won't be leaving you in the lurch. So when and if something comes out, we'll let you know, but you don't have to worry about having to migrate. We won't be leaving you behind on that journey when and if it arrives. So looking forward in terms of what's actually next for Service Portal. So the Employee Center and the CSM, CSP portals that I showed at the beginning of the session, they're still going to receive major updates. We're still investing heavily in building out these experiences. And they're both built upon our current version of Service Portal. So the Service Portal framework itself will also be receiving updates, but they're more geared towards quality of life enhancements. So if you want to see an update on, as I mentioned, the Angular JS library version, what technology stack we use, or the design tools themselves, we won't be making any major updates there. So if you are wanting a Service Portal that uses all React components, we won't be making any changes there. However, as a caveat on that point, because I get asked about it a lot, you can bring in React components. There's a few blogs out there that you can do, that you can search for, and they will provide slightly different methods of bringing in that, but it's not something we officially support. So you have options, but we don't officially support them. I wanted to add that in there. And in terms of what I mean by quality of life enhancements for Service Portal, you can see on the right here, some potential new features we're kind of looking at is, support for right to left languages, and enabling different methods of attaching various files to requests, or catalog items, anything like that. And also updating, how you can brand your AI search. So we are also working on features. We are still building out new things, but they're just not going to be anything too dramatic. So yeah. And now, where to find more information, please go to the ServiceNow Community Hub and look for Service Portal. There's a wealth of material out there, but we also have Now Learning courses, which are really, really great, provide you information on how to brand, how to create a widget, all that good stuff is in there. I also have some documents on community relating to design guidelines, development guidelines. So if you're just signing out with your Service Portal journey, or if you're doing anything extra, any enhancements, take a look. You might find something that, really helps in there. Yeah, regardless, I'll now hand over for questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see any further questions so far. We've answered some as we went. Please try out or check in on the other academies that I hinted at, especially the ones about Next Experience. If you want to learn more about UI Builder, our colleagues are also doing a live stream, I think every other week, on the ServiceNow Dev Program channel. called You and I Build Our Life with Brett Tilton and Maria Gabriela. And then Maria Gabriela is also running the Next Experience Academy. There's a huge fountain of articles out on the community in the Next Experience Center of Excellence, written by Brett Tilton and Ashley Snyder. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope this session was helpful. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for preparing this content. And I hope that everybody has learned something about Service Portal today. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.